Admiral Cistern sat at his desk and overlooked the bridge of the Dauntless through tinted glass. They knew he was watching, but never how closely. Little bits of paranoia kept men working good and hard. The whole mission was a cock-up from beginning to end. They had supplies and resources enough for a century-long trip if the recycling techniques worked half as well as the hydroponic bays, and they did. The men were motivated and proud as well. The enemies that revealed themselves were incompetent when they weren't trivial to subvert or recruit. It was the other things that were a problem. A big one. Best he could tell, the entire galaxy would be ravenously eyeing up Earth and any territory any of its sovereign states claimed due to the sheer gender ratio. The fact that this mistake was made was reasonable. It was considered a general sign of sapience in the galaxy at large to have a species with a massive gender divide favoring females. It allowed a race to thrive with fewer resources and ensure that the best pass on, but only if a thinking mind directed things. At least, that was the general science before humanity came screaming into the scene. Apparently his species is becoming the exception that proves the rule. Bit of Bullock. There is nothing I can do to stop my species from being the gigolos of the galaxy, he moans to himself. Our weapons outrange common hardware by a factor of 10 and outright ignore the most common defenses. We are functionally immune to the standard methods of non-lethal takedowns, but no, we're male, so we can only be breeders and such. He picks up a data slate and peruses it. The information the galaxy has on his species: bipedal, mammalian, omnivorous, 100 per 100. Number 1. Species name: human, home world, Earth, sector, cruel space. No, these are not typos. No, this is not a mistake. A species with an obscene gender ratio has been found in the least habitable part of the galaxy. If not for the unusual gender ratio, they would be BMO number 284. The tinny voice of the data slate reads out to him. He presses the button for further elaboration. Bipedal. The human species walks upright and upon two limbs. Like much of the galaxy, they have a very close resemblance to many lizard and ape-descent strains of sapient in that the extremities of their locomotion limbs are effectively modified grasping appendages. They have an unusual and rare cooling system known as sweating. This process causes them to secrete oils which rapidly evaporate and carry away heat from the body. This process also unleashes an enormous amount of pheromones in the air during the heat or rut phases of the species that use them. It should be noted that humans are effectively in heat from puberty to impotence. The data slate chimes up and Admiral Cistern sighs. Mammalian. The human species is a warm-blooded and furred species. Although their fur appears quite sparse, superficially they closely resemble BMO 1/100th number 3 and likely share a similar biological ancestry in large apes that adapted to tool use. Interestingly, as they have evolved in the greatest natural null deposit in the galaxy colloquially known as cruel space, they are likely immune to its effects. This has yet to be proven. Preliminary genetic tests and scans of their own databases prove them to have the acclimatization strains, allowing them to breed with any other member of the galactic community. They have long dubbed this vital portion of the DNA as the junk strains, as they were unable to decipher its purpose and assumed it as leftover and deactivated portions of the genetic code. It continues, and Admiral Cistern nods as he pulls out a small flask of good drink and takes a swig. Omnivorous. This is where humans begin showing truly exotic traits. Their unfortunate evolution in the middle of cruel space and lack of any form of axiom energy during their evolution as a species or culture has forced them to truly stretch the definition of omnivore. Great care is to be used in eating any form of human food, as their tolerances for poison is unrivaled, and they consider many deadly substances and plants to be simple and stable parts of their diets. In particular, the crowd control and riot-suppressant chemical weapons known as Wicked Winter and Ferocious Flame are considered mere flavors, minty and spicy respectively, and are often used in candies and meals. Furthermore, dangerous chemical stimulants are considered part of common recreational drinks that are universally available among both military and civilian population. They have dubbed it caffeine, and it is available to even small children. Scanning equipment is recommended at all times. It reads out, and Admiral Cistern mentally chuckles. The spiced chicken dinner that had been offered to the ambassador had not gone over well, nor had the dinner mints meant as a palate cleanser or a friendly chat with coffee and biscuits. Still, if these classifications were anything to be considered, it appeared they were understanding about that debacle. 100 per 100. The humans are the only sapient species in the known galaxy with an equal number of males to females. Current evaluations determine this to be a defensive survival trait against the sheer danger born of living in cruel space. The sheer lethality of their homeworld and this adaptation to it has caused massive cultural divides between themselves and the rest of the galaxy. To the humans, males are the expendable gender and are the ones that act as both warrior and laborer in their communities. That one was almost clinical. Though the implication that Earth is exceptionally dangerous in some capacity does mean that colonization will likely be quite easy. So the main problem will be getting people off Earth and out of cruel space. After that, the other planets and peoples will fight to line up and offer them space. Number 1. Though in many respects all races are unique in the galaxy, humans hold truly one-of-a-kind qualifications due to their ratio between male and female and utter lack of axiom energy in any form of their society. The diplomatic vessel Dauntless is their first major project into axiom technology, and they have proven to be an incredibly industrious species, having built a massive vessel in a period of time rivaling a miner's shipyard without any of the standard support structure or training required. Unfortunately, as a race, they have already been victimized by pirate attacks and lost a significant number of crew, suggesting that their martial capacities are not up to standard with the rest of the galaxy. Again, this is likely due to their lack of axiom energy around their homeworld. The slate belts out at him as he screws the top onto his whiskey and tucks it away. In conclusion, Race BMO 100 100ths number 1 is likely to break out into the entertainment and escort industry. They will undoubtedly quickly fall into this niche and be rapidly seen in many worlds over the next few centuries. That is all currently known about species BMO 100 100ths number 1, the humans. With that, the data slate stops talking at him and he considers. As a man and a lifelong military man, no less, this bothers him. This really bothers him. The idea that he would be expected to sell himself around a pole more than manning a gun, or to be kept as a house husband and have his training and experience disregarded makes him want to spit. Yet he could not find a better option. Humans are behind, with everything on top of being stranded in the middle of a massive spatial anomaly that cripples advanced technology. It was like being from a continent where fossil fuels and electricity simply did not work, forcing everyone to rely on coal. Not a bad standard of living, but nowhere near what the rest of the world would consider impressive. I'm one of the most powerful men on Earth, and off it, I'm at best a tight piece of ass in most circles. We're being humored by these cretins because they want boyfriends and husbands, he says to himself before exhaling an enormous lungful of air. The intercom on his desk beeps and he stabs the button without bothering to open his eyes. Admiral, the claw is safely docked and undergoing modifications to its transceiver and IFF for its new pseudonym. Furthermore, they are in the process of transferring not only the prisoner but a refugee requesting asylum. Also, Captain Lilpaw wishes to speak with you. I'm on my way, he says before standing up and marching out of his office. He quickly makes his way to the anti-gravity corridors through the ship and holds up his arm to the right wall. The magnetic rail grabs onto the patch of metal on his wrist. It has his rank, insignia, and name on top of being able to serve as armor in a pinch, but its main purpose was to adhere to the rail and numerous other small devices with a single strong magnet on them. Usually ammo cartridges. After a few minutes, he holds out his left arm and catches a ladder that he swings himself onto and climbs back into the gravity field. His stomach threatens revolt, but is brought back into line. He marches solidly into the large cargo bay and glares down, Admiral on deck. A soldier shouts and the room turns to him with a salute. The aliens look confused by this, but that's what happens when you recruit from the scum of the galaxy. He snaps a salute back at both his workers and the brave, if suspect, men that had volunteered to live among the pirates, as you were soldiers, he says before turning and quickly getting on the lift. Moments later, and he's on the ground floor of bay and walks smartly through the crews that part around him in deference for his rank. Sir, our first mission was a complete success. Our malefactor, one Miss Karen Darkdown, is being escorted to the holding cells as we speak. We have all of her personal blackmail materiel, several of her weapons deposits, her ludicrously expensive wardrobe, and it was all disguised by the theft of several 100,000 in physical credit discs and a massive carjacking operation. Commander Brent says with a salute, and Admiral Sister nods before glancing towards the bright red sports car with thrusters instead of wheels. Excellent. What is the price tag our good captain has placed on these pieces? He asks before turning at the sound of claws clicking against the floor to behold the quadrupedal captain. He looked over her at first before glancing down. The fact that a fair portion of the galaxy walks on all fours and rears up to use tools, or temporarily balance on their hind legs for intimidation purposes, is still sinking in somewhat. It helps to think of them like a bear with thumbs. That's also a woman. Price. Oh, I do like this part. First off, the bitch. I want 1 million credits for her. I understand it'll take you some time, so consider it a debt you owe me. I'm keeping the dresses and the guns and money and the cars and yay. I'm keeping everything else and you owe me 1 million. Oh, but I'll swap a copy of the blackmail in exchange for an equal-sized copy of your movies and books. And such. Lilpa says with a smirk and then raises an eyebrow as Admiral Cistern smirks. An excellent bargain, Captain, and you don't have to wait for that 1 million credits. I have brought over numerous goods and luxury items from the home world for trade, and have sold a small amount for an enormous profit. Apparently delicious exotic candy made almost exclusively by men is worth roughly 10 times its weight in credits. Would you like your 1 million credits in small units or larger ones? Larger ones, the hard credits we got in the raid were exclusively in smaller units. Lilpaw answers and he nods. Of course. Now, I heard something about someone requesting refugee status. Right. This awkward, sir. Technically, she's the daughter of our apprehended target, sir. Commander Brent says, and Admiral Cistern gives him an even look. Sir, have you had the opportunity to study on robotics and artificial intelligences in the galaxy? My schedule has been extremely full. We're currently eating into my personal time, soldier. Then I won't cut too deep into it, sir. They can't make robotic minds, but they can brain scan and copy minds into a digital space. As such, all robots are basically a person in a robot body. Brent explains, and it falls into place. Our refugee is a brain scan of Miss Darkdown. She is an abused, manipulated, and enslaved brain scan of Miss Karen Darkdown, sir. She was created on a power trip by Miss Darkdown and kept in perpetual servitude until she suffered what appears to be severe disassociation from her organic self. Legally standing, a brain scan is considered to be either a second instance of the person in question or a direct relation. Brent explains, if the woman just wants shelter and rehabilitation, then we will help. Admiral Cistern and Commander Brent nods. Is there more? She's a mode shifter, sir, a transforming robot rabbit woman that's 20 feet tall when bipedal. Her other form is a luxury air car, Commander Brent says, and Admiral Cistern closes his eyes for a moment. Before taking a deep breath and exhaling, he opens them again and glances at what he thought was a sports car, but is apparently the refugee requesting aid. That what you said makes complete sense is just ... I fail to find the words, so long as she is not a danger to my men or my ship, and is cooperative as a guest, I am willing to offer her refugee status in my capacity as Earth's main ambassador and admiral of its planetary navy. He says before turning towards the car, Madam, provided this isn't some absurd prank by my soldier, could you please introduce yourself so I may begin the process of assigning you quarters? Double quotes a digital woman's voice echoes from the car before there's a shifting of its everything. It takes Admiral Cistern a moment to take in the 20-foot-tall woman that looks like a Playboy bunny in thigh-high boots and wearing opera gloves, all in red with her skin the pitch black leather of the car's interior. She even has a mess of wires and fiber optics for her hair, even as her ears twitch nervously, biting back the obvious question of why a robot woman needs enormous breasts and an equally enormous rump. He simply nods. A pleasure to meet you, madam. I apologize that it's not under better circumstances, he says, and she takes a step back before kneeling down to better meet his gaze. You ... it. Thank you. Is ... is being this nice normal for your kind? She asks, and Admiral Cistern gives Commander Brent a sideways look. The soldier shrugs and mouths the words good manners in English. Madam, you are a thinking being that have not in any way proven to be my enemy or an enemy of anything I care about. As such, there are basic manners you are owed, basic courtesy and deference to your own right to choose and... as a person, until you somehow prove yourself less or more than I will treat you the same as any other refugee asking for aid. So ... you have asked for help and shall receive, madam. I don't care what your origin is, merely what we can do for you, he says, and the enormous alien robot rabbit woman shudders, shakes, and then bursts into tears before sweeping him up in an enormous hug and holding him close as she thanks him over and over again and begging for this to not be a dream and for it to finally be over. After an uncomfortable moment, Admiral Cistern hugs her around her head and she sniffs against him, the pinpricks of light that make up her facial expression shifting and twisting as she balls into his torso. Captain, do we know how long Dark Down had her model locked and defenseless? Commander Brent asks, unsure about what to do about the spectacle happening in front of them as a robot somehow produces both tears and mucus to smear into the Admiral's uniform in her distress. Long enough for a major breakdown, she answers. In surprise. Several hours later, after the annoyance of calming down Miss Cotty Downshift, their refugee had requested a rechristening. He had set her up with her own quarters and all but threw one of the ship's psychiatrists in there with her. He'll either end up with a broken pelvis, used as a plush toy, or actually help the poor woman. Whichever it was, the problem was averted for now. He took a fortifying sip of the coffin-polished grade coffee he had ordered. Stressful days like this needed the old college trick where you ran the coffee through the grinds and filters a few times to concentrate it to the point of near lethality. Taking it with stomach pills is a must. After he gets to the halfway point, the door opens and he sees 9... Nope, the 10th of his pirate boys is racing up with a huge folder full of paper. Get in here, I want a full debriefing, he says. And they all march in, followed by the 10th, Franklin, skidding in and nearly plowing into the desk. What's the rush, soldier? Sorry, sir. I was organizing all my notes on the substances, axiom and null, and their possible military uses. Sir, the ginger replies before standing up straight. He looks like he's been through a strainer, and the bags under his eyes are so dark they resemble bruises. When was the last time you slept, soldier? prior to the raid on Thorin Insurance, he says, and the rest of the men give pinched and annoyed looks before stealing themselves. Soldier, that was over 2 weeks ago. He remarks, wondering exactly what the man is being fueled by and where more can be procured. I am aware, sir, however, what I have uncovered is far too valuable to ignore. Franklin says with a salute, I want a summary. He orders. The aliens have what is effectively magic, sir, and I've been pulling it apart and learning about it so that we can use it as well. I need more than that, sir, Franklin says with a salute. We'll start with quick linguistic history. Axiom energy, which fuels all known exotic technology and even the very biology of alien life, was once called Axis energy after a devolution of the term. Access energy, which was used in order to bring about a more scientific understanding of what was then known as magic. Basically, hoity-toity speak has devolved and mutated a few times to land magic on its current name of axiom. Makes sense. How can we use it? There are 3 known methods of using magic. We've gotten some very, very basic tutoring in using it in technology. The Dauntless is an example of such. The second is a spiritual methodology that resembles straight-up wizardry out of a fantasy novel. The easiest access we have to this is through medical texts and personnel of non-human origin, as axiom is used for the majority of their more complicated techniques. Finally, there is a semi-monastic order of martial artists. Most major population centers have an enclave. These individual styles and schools have a dizzying amount of names, but all of them craft powerful totems that allow them to direct axiom into themselves and manifest weapons of pure energy. Common names include mancers, flow users, masters of the art, and other such pretentious-sounding names. Both the spiritualist types and the martial artist types are often called adepts in common slang terminology. Impressive. Anything else? Admiral Cistern asks, wondering if he really does want to know anymore. I have had some ideas, sir, and I believe I have discovered the foundations of a potential hybrid style. If it is widely practiced, then it is not widely advertised, but blending what I understand of the totem users with the more spiritual methodology and my own engineering skills, I believe we may be able to make a series of techniques and skills that will allow for a great number of lateral options both on and off the battlefield. I hope you have some proof of this, soldier. This sounds rather too fantastical for easy digestion. Admiral Cistern says mildly, and his eyebrows rise in surprise as Franklin nods. Let's see it. Very well, sir, he says, putting the thick file folder on the desk. Before taking a step back, he pulls out a small brass-looking disc out of his pocket that has been carved into intricately and holds it in his left hand. Cistern recognizes it as a Kuth, a credit disc. Value 500 credits regardless of the vandalism. The oddly refracting metal holds that level of value as a metal dot. Franklin takes a breath and the carved piece of currency starts glowing and floats over his hand. He then clasps his hands over it and pulls them apart with electricity arcing between them and riding up his fingers like a live Tesla coil dot. As the room stares at him, he suddenly wrenches his right hand up and the electricity gathers within it to ignite and become a dancing flame in the palm of his hand that he then crushes in his bare hand, then throws the energy at the rest of his fellow commanders. Their clothing and hair is blasted as if a strong wind had whipped around and tried to knock them all down. The nearer to actually take a step back to brace themselves a bit better, no one is hurt. The basis of my style is not the sheer strength of will of a mancer or the oneness with everything that is the spiritualist, but based in the knowledge that all forms of energy are similar and with axiom interchangeable. I converted axiom to electric, electrical energy to thermal, and thermal to kinetic. Because I can use anything to make anything, with some programming knowledge I can also use it to remotely access computers and data networks that I have no possible way of getting into in any capacity. With your approval, I'd like to continue my studies and have these hard copies of my notes gone over by our scientists and researchers to see how viable this might be for us, sir. All right, put down your focus prototype and let me have these hard notes. Then go to bed, and only after you've had breakfast and a shower do I want you to transfer a digital copy of your notes to me. Understand? Admiral Cistern orders, and Franklin nods before putting the thing down on top of the rest of the notes. The moment he's no longer in contact with the totem, he outright collapses to the floor, and before Admiral Cistern can stand fully upright to get a good look at him, he begins to snore. After a quick glance at the collapsed but unharmed soldier, he gives a little smile before sitting back down. Men, I am currently torn between annoyed, amused, and impressed, if there is nothing more. For me, then, this meeting will reflect well on you. Is there more? Primarily observations to the behavioral patterns of the aliens, sir. Commander Brent says after a few moments, and Admiral Cistern gestures for him to continue. You've no doubt noticed that the pheromones of a human male are highly distracting, and they are always eager to couple. Cistern nods. Well, they also seem to imprint, for lack of a better term. Couple with them once, and they fixate on your specific pheromones to the exclusivity of others. This could possibly be used as a means to take control of organizations. Each of us is effectively in control of a large portion of the ship with this. So you have been coupling with them. Yes, sir. I'm not disparaging you, soldier. I'm just... I apologize. Continue. He orders, shaking out his own disgust. One of the main requirements for this mission was no regrets, meaning most soldiers were single, divorced, or surviving the departure of their loved ones. Admiral Cistern had a bit of a learned paranoia about women as a man who had been thoroughly raked over the coals by a divorce lawyer and had his children taught to hate him. And since it was by the one he thought was his other half turned into his worst enemy, he felt it was a fair reaction. Once burned, twice shy. A particularly loud snore interrupts everyone's train of thought, and Franklin jerks awake and grudgingly rises up. Apparently, it was loud enough to wake him. The struggle to keep his laughter contained is something only. Admiral Cistern wins as the rest of the men start shaking and snorting in amusement as the other man wakes from his minute-long nap. Oh, sorry, sir. I single quotes LL ... I'll get that shower and breakfast and then send you my notes ... double quotes, Franklin says as he starts to stagger out of the room. Get some proper rest, Solider. 8 hours at least. That's an order, Admiral Cistern admonishes. Him, and Franklin slowly turns around in his staggering, almost zombie-like gait. One can almost hear the gears slowly churning in the man's head. How long was I asleep, sir? About a minute, maybe 2. I see ... May I be dismissed, sir? I need a warm place to fall down into. I suggest a bed. Dismissed, soldier, Admiral Cistern says, and Franklin staggers out of the room. When we're done in here, make sure he's made it to at least a cot. Understood, he adds the moment the door closes. Yes, sir. For a quick catch-up, we set up our workshop, recreation, and gymnasium stations in the pirate ship quickly and efficiently, and despite some misunderstandings, we've managed to quickly take social and emotional control of the entire ship. It feels kind of sleazy, sir, but they're hanging off our every word now, and we won't even need veto powers to get them to avoid attacking some targets. I've been talking with the captain, and she's not averse to legit trading and bounty hunting, but would need a new IFF for the ship, and we have provided one as the Earth Foreign Legion, or EFL Tiger, Admiral Cistern says calmly. So the plan is approved, sir. We shipped out with a massively bloated crew because we knew we would need either cannon fodder or manpower to either defend ourselves or take advantage of whatever situations the rest of the galaxy throws at us. Thankfully, we're taking advantage. With how many men are on our crew, we have enough to subvert an entire armada worth of pirates alone. It's not only approved, but is going to be used as the example for what to do going forwards. There's no way that the decision makers and captains of industry won't already have husbands, but their advisors, their secretaries, and those that relay their messages might not. Taking advantage of dirty politics, sir. We're going to have two. The Federation of Systems is a loose and ineffective conglomeration that has at most accomplished three things. A defense treaty that has never been put to the test, a widely accepted but not universal form of income in the form of galactic standard credits, and finally the galactic trade language, which they accomplished by simply having an algorithm translate all their documents into it and refusing to answer to requests in any other language. The actual creation of the language was an experiment by over 5,000 different universities across nearly as many worlds working together. Admiral Cistern explains with his disdain easily written over his face before he swallows it. Do we have a plan, sir? Commander Jake asks. We do. Now that I've been able to properly examine how we were attacked by the pirates, I find myself rather impressed. Their electronic warfare is inspired and caused us to waste most of our shots. I am also impressed with the level of sheer loyalty those girls have for you. As such, we have made contact with the pirates from ships other than the Claw that attacked. They have been offered the same deal and they all have accepted to the last. The Earth Foreign Legion is getting off the ground, boys, he says, and there's a nod from each. Which brings me to your part of the plan. Make sure Commander Smith gets this information as well. He orders and receives 9 smart salutes. Good. Now we have roughly 5 ships incoming to be recruited, yet a fleet of 7 ships just isn't enough. Get your girls to start talking to their friends and family. See how many will take our offer to join up the EFL. Admiral Cistern orders, and there are nods all around. Excellent. If there's nothing else, then that will be all, he says, and after a moment of silence, he nods. Dismissed, as his soldiers give him 9 textbook salutes and march out of the office. Admiral Cistern smiles to himself. Yes, the galaxy assumes that he and his are naught but pretty faces to be protected. But they will never know just how much they will dance to the tune of Mother Earth. Before we start, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. Only 4% of my channel is subscribed. When it reaches 1,000 subscribers, I will release a special video. The first sign was a whisper in the void, an anomaly detected. Captain Lilpaw couldn't keep her tail from wagging as they zoomed in on the port. Ashen Duct was a well-named spaceport stolen from the Regran Cooperation some 100 years ago as they fell into bankruptcy. Its proper name was Station 9837, cruel space adjacent, but they called it Ashen Duct because troublemakers were reduced down by the sheer amount of overenthusiastic laser fire until the only thing left was the ash in the ducts. Of course, it's a pirate station, so troublemakers are those who are stupid enough to damage the station itself, and that's about it. Of course, it's a pirate station, meaning there's always at least a few hilariously stupid people getting lit up by the guards. They were considered part of the local entertainment. Captain, we have our landing permissions. We've gotta dock and are heading to it, Hanny says from nearby, and she nods. Most of her command crew are either multi-limbed species or non-limbed species. They can either press all the buttons or pay massive attention to when they need to press that one all-important button. The ship goes in smoothly, and she nods before Hanny goes through all the docking sequences, flipping each of the switches in order with her 6 arms faster than most other races could. As ABI H1/100th number 11, her sensory antennae were so sensitive that the little lights on the panel were nothing but a redundancy, as she could straight up pick out the electromagnetic currents running beneath them. If she wasn't so dim as to be unquestioning of her captain, then by species alone she'd be in engineering and working on sniffing out the tiny bits of wear and tear that naturally builds up over time in any electronic system. Good luck. US in nice and tight while I get myself and my team ready, she says before turning on the speakers all over the ship. Shifts for through 8 are allowed to do whatever so long as they're back in 12 hours. Shifts 9 and 10 are on resupply duty, and the rest are to hold down the ship. Standard port plan unless you're part of My Little Getaway, which means get your weapons on and check M 3 times each. She orders the ship and cuts off the two-way as nearly half the ship starts cheering about how it's their turn to have fun. "All right, girls, I'm a comm call away if you need me," Lil Pa says as she rises up from her laying position in the command couch and quickly pads out of the room. "Enjoy the date, Captain." Jingay chirps out as the limbless woman shakes the tip of her tail at her with a huge smile. The TRC-1 100th number 4 would be almost threatening shaking the axiom-infused rattle at the tip of her tail at her, but the woman's too dim to actually use it properly. If she had grown up in primitivism, she'd have died as a child. Deep Crag Nagasha. Have a fairly harsh homeworld. "I will," she says. There's no real point getting angry at the living answering machine, whose name literally translates to kinda stupid in an older Nagasha language. Captain ... Jingay begins before she can properly leave the bridge. "Yes. It's my turn with Brent next, right? I just wanted to make sure things weren't shifted around again. It kept happening when I was married, and I never even really met him before I was recruited," Jingay asks, and despite herself, Lil Pa feels a twist of pity. "You're next. Unless he gets hurt for some reason, you're going to have a good night with him," she promises, and the snake woman's smile is enormous as she hisses in anticipation. She have to speak to Miles, make sure he doesn't get cold feet. She leaves the ecstatic snake woman to her fantasies and quickly pads her way through her ship. The forward airlock is where she and the team are leaving from. The girls on the supply run are using the rear airlock, closer to the storage bays. She cannot keep the leer off her face as the door to the forward airlock opens. 10 men indifferent, levels of armor mixed and matched with rugged casual wear, and a massive amount of weapons. The big stompy black boots were universal, although the knives strapped to a lot of them were not. All in all, they looked like they walked out of a cheesy beefcake-filled action movie. They all had at least a pistol on them, with Brent, her boy, having his gigantic long-range rifle on his back and a bandolier of massive ammunition for it. With that, he could reach out and kill just about anyone in the station from anywhere in the station. His favored pistol was tucked near his heart, and his service one was strapped to his thigh. His jacket and loose pants give him an air of both mystery and danger with the sheer amount of obvious ordnance tied to him. Rue was testing out the edge of a long curved sword while Lou smiled nastily at him with his shining hook-ended swords. The two had apparently gotten into a cultural pissing contest that had stopped just short of someone getting stabbed, and from the look of both of them, neither was backing down. The fact that each also had what were called shotguns slung over their backs with a belt of ammo on made them excellent opposites. Actually, considering they were both wearing identical outfits, but for the swords made it a very strange case in opposites. Armored vests to show off the incredible definition in their smaller frames, loose pants tucked into the boots with pockets full of chemical explosives, and a knife in each boot. The pistol on their thighs completed the image. Sci has dressed himself in smartly cut and colorful dark blue and green robes that poorly conceal numerous weapons that are so badly hidden they draw attention away from the pistol and knife in his sash. A common trick among pirates, he catches on quick. Around his head is a white wrapping that seems both religious and exotic, especially the brightly flashing gemstone, which will grab most, if not all, the attention on him. Very clever. The knife and pistol are practically invisible now, and she can also make out a little bit of armor poking out from underneath a helmet. He's hiding armor under that big flashy target. Brilliant. Marcus is the most obviously armored with a full set of bronzed ablative plating minus a helmet, and has both a primitive shield of enormous size and with a large V on it. and a spear in addition to his pistol and knives, and seeing her gaze, he turns the shield around to reveal the disassembled rifle on the other side. Smart. Jean Luc is in casual wear compared to everyone else with his bulky jacket. Then he opens it to reveal both armor and enough explosives that he's guaranteed to be stopped by station security. The massive grin on his face almost has her roll her eyes. Yep, he's the stupid one this trip. Jake is shirtless and standing like a titan over the rest to reveal his chiseled physique. He's one of the only ones with a standard weapon in the form of a plasma cannon that he's lifting as if in the middle of an exercise routine. An anti-vehicle grade plasma cannon, the pistol strapped to each thigh and massive knives in his. Boots are just part of the scenery when someone's carrying that much weapon, let alone the fact that the man is just that much man. Victor is his fierce competition with a massive cruise-scale laser repeater, an area denial weapon for when you need a bunker secure. The man's black shirt is so tight it's effectively painted on and only seams on to support his bandolier of throwing knives and extra ammo for the pistol strapped to his left thigh. Bick has seemingly airbrushed himself to look like a jackass with his flowing jacket and decorative armor plating. He looks like an oversized child playing space pirate. Looks like he's playing pirate, but the eye patch is clearly a material that he can see through. The wig sewn into his tricorn hat is hiding the chin strap of his helmet, and there are little pinches in his clothing to show that he's probably the most well-armored of the bunch, just with a cheap costume over it. His weapons have been painted to look like oversized toys, but are clearly too hefty to be anything but lethal. Clever, if annoying. At first, Franklin can't be seen. Then he steps to the side to reveal the strange glowing gauntlets with a massive ring sticking out the side of each one. She can physically see the Axiom energy stored in the things, and they're growing brighter by the moment as he adjusts and tampers with them. He's dressed almost formally, looking more like he's ready for a night on the town, and his weapons can't even be seen at first. Concealed shoulder holster, and his pants have a slight bulge where they hang over his boots to show a knife tucked away. The gauntlets with the Axiom pouring off them are really concerning. All right, just what's the plan you idiots are following? She asks after her scan of the men. Some of you are dressed as kidnap bait, others look like they want to wage straight-up war with the station, and the rest have stepped out of an early act in Apano with too much plot and not enough cock. Most of you are some combination of the three. Then the illusion is working. Sai announces with a theatrical clap of his hands, and Bick breaks out into laughter, followed by the rest after a few moments of strained looks she glares at. Then, in response, Captain, we're all ready for a war, yet we're also ready to put on a show as needed. So we need to look good, he says, and both Victor and Jake flex harder, causing their arms to bulge outwards in a tantalizing display of power. We need to be able to defend ourselves if things go wrong, so we need to be dangerous. He continues, and Jean-Luc pulls out a launcher for his explosive ordnance, where and how he had been hiding that is going to be bothering her for a long time. Finally, we need to get it all past security, so it needs to be dismissed as a show. Yeah. Bick shouts in glee, and everyone around him rolls their eyes with a fond smile. So yay, we look like kidnap bait straight out of a combination action movie and porno. That's deliberate. We fully expect to shoot and even kill more than a few when we're out tonight because we need to make a damn statement. We may be men in a woman's galaxy, but we are not to be underestimated no matter what we look like. Brent explains, and Lil Paw runs it through her head a few times before shrugging. Fine, but there's going to be a penalty if any of you need rescue due to stupid, such as. Bick asks, and she gives him a stern look. If even one of you falls to stupid, then I'm moving the stills and locking the door. None of you will even taste what comes out of them for a week. She threatens and cannot help but smile as the look of horror crosses all of their faces. No doubt the ones that don't drink are dreading how angry the others would be. Good, now it's going to be you boys and about a quarter of our combat girls. Mech suits get you shot by security, so they'll be packing lasers and some of the plasma we grabbed out of our raid. In close quarters armor's only good for deflecting glancing blows from plasma and becomes a branding iron after only a few shots from the lasers. There's an unspoken law in pirate stations that those who wear energy shields get stabbed, so rely on not being hit more than resisting a hit. Understand? She asks, and they nod. Good. Also, if I or any of my girls tell you to do something, then it happens. Understand? Another nod from them. Good. One last thing. The new recruits are with us. This is their test of blades, she says, and notices the confusion. They're Nagasha. There's a lot of different types all over the galaxy, and the test of blades is a way they say to go through a great trial to find worth. I don't damn know. It's part of a bunch of stupid old stories that a quarter of the slithery witches are named after, she explains, thinking to Jinge, whose own name is part of the stories. The silly girl had tried to explain it a few, but it was just a long tale of some poor dim girl being taken advantage of over and over again. It went on so long that she couldn't even pay attention to it. It was just flat out depressing, and there were apparently 100 and to such stories. Woo-hoo. We're shipping out with the hunks, UNH. One of the new girls exclaims in joy. She and her opposite are Greater Plains Nagasha each. They're both massive tryhards, their tails covered with tattoos and their hair dye with massive piercings and chains running all over the reptilian half of their bodies. Bits of pointless scrap armor adorn their shoulders and shirts torn to the point that they barely covered the girls' nipples. Will you two idiots at least try not to get shot? This is a pirate station full of wound-up tense slags that will be drooling over our boys. The only reason we're trusting you fools to go out with them is that they're some of the toughest fighters on the ship. Don't think this is a game. This isn't going to be fun. You girls are slithering over a field of blades now. If you want to keep your scales, you'll pay some damn attention. Jin the second in assault on the ship hisses at them. She's a desert Nagasha, TRC-1 100th number 2, 6 armed, and with the fact that she's completely covered her torso and face with black and white war paint says to everyone that she's out for blood and murder. That she's got a pair of plasma swords, a laser cannon, and 2 plasma pistols holstered around her waist says that she's clearly ready to fight and kill the entire station on her own. Generally, a desert Nagasha's mood can be judged by their paint. The more of it there is, less room they have for jokes and messing about. The only level higher would be the painting of her arms as well, which would mean that she's genocidically serious rather than merely homicidally serious. Feeling neutral meant the eyes, lips, and cheeks would all have paint, and never trust a desert Nagasha without paint. Holy shit, you look ready to rock, Franklin remarks, and Jin gives him a glare. Yep, straight out of a rock concert. Jake says, I'm not sure what the paint means, but it looks like you're ready to either wipe out the station on your own or pull out an instrument and get into a literal battle of the bands. Jin slowly slithers up to the large, darker skin man and grabs him by the belt to heft him upwards. I am showing naught but focus. I have neither time nor inclination to entertain stupidity. If any of you end up taken, I will kill everything in my path to get you back. You want to avoid a bloodbath? Then you will not allow yourself to be taken. Understand? Understood. The men state as one, and she nods. She examines them all closely and nods. Hidden armor and a full armory worth of weapons. Good, she says, then looks back at Jake, who she's still holding up by his belt. You will be joining me in my quarters tonight. She straight up tells the big man. I'm gonna make you sweat off that makeup in ways you'll be bragging about for years. Sweat? Nagasha don't sweat, she says. Good time as any to learn, he remarks, and there's a slight quirk of her lip. She sets him down calmly and nods. We're ready. Janet, Lisa, you follow me at all times and offer fire support no matter what. If I point my weapons at someone, then you need to be ready to kill them. You got it, boss lady? Janet cheers. Lasers hot and ready to burn. Lisa adds dots. All Jin can do to not grab their weapons from them and start beating them over the head with them. They'll learn. They'll learn or they'll die. All right, ladies, gentlemen, we going in. Agenda orders before padding to the final few airlock doors, and all but one hiss open as the tiny spot between both major airlocks fills with a touch of atmosphere. Barely enough for privacy. The rest of the security is stationed on the way to the meeting place. We are not screwing this up. Holy crap, are we among pirates, or more military? Jake asks himself, and Franklin audibly snorts in amusement. More than half all pirates ever are former military, be it in the galaxy or on the high seas. He notes as he draws a large amount of axiom out of the air and molding it into power that lifts him off the ground. Hey, finally got it! He exclaims happily as he pulls out a pen and notepad and quickly starts writing down the details of whatever the hell he had just done. Oh God, he can fly now. Nowhere is safe, Victor notes, and Franklin lets out a bark of laughter. Keep low. Flying when every girl's got an itchy trigger finger makes you nothing more than a target, Jin remarks with a glare at him. Yes, it is intriguing. Yes, the possibilities are immense, and flight is considered a very difficult thing to do outside of very specific axiom disciplines, but that's for later. Now is time for wariness and battle. Just a quick reminder, we've got half our security at intervals between here and Jen's Bar and Bargain, our meeting place with the other captains. The other half is already there. They're part of the crowd until we need help, then they're our backup shooting the enemy in the back, understand? Ma'am? Yes, ma'am. The men say as one, and Jin nods as Agenda groans in frustration. Good, now Captain, we're ready, she says, and Agenda nods. A command to her implant and the airlock fully opens. Without a word, she leads them through the mobile tunnel that had been maneuvered to link up with the ship proper. Short of a fancy docking platform with atmospheric shields, these umbilical airlocks were the best bet. Certainly easier than trying to get every whack job inventor in the galaxy to try and stick to standard models for airlocks, or somehow keep a station's power running below standard scanning frequencies with dozens of docking platforms. Legit places could ramp the power up. Ashen Duct had to at least pretend to be hiding. Sweet! Come to mama, a random pirate yells the moment she and her group slip into the station proper. Pay up. One of the men says, and she glances back in time to see Bick pass Marcus a credit disc. Alibi blessed, not even 5 seconds. Bick mutters before patting his outfit down to check his obviously hidden weapons. Can it? We're moving, gents. Brent orders as he takes the lead with a thumb tucked into his belt and a clear swagger in his step. Are those men? Hey, girls, there's an entire troop of guys. Holy crap, where did they come from? The questions and questing of the station start out fast and like a wave crash through the station, and soon there's a thick crowd. The aim assist of Jin's weapons cause them to part and let her walk with her men, who are glancing around and checking to see if anyone's brave enough to rush them. She leads them through the station with the absurdly pissed off looking Jin scaring away most of the crowd, with the men conversing in what sounds like 3 different languages from their homeworld. Either that or they had a widely used language that didn't so much adapt to other foreign languages as outright mug them for spare expressions. There's a shout behind her, and she turns to see Franklin seem to mime out fighting something, before the axiom around him crackles and runs down both him and a figure that he's pushing back. It takes a moment for it to connect exactly what's going on before a stronger burst of energy from Franklin knocks out the figure, and he lets her drop. The moment she's out of contact with him, she's completely invisible again. BRC 1/100th. Hash 4.2, Jin notes calmly as she has her heavy plasma pointed right where she dropped. Since when the hell do the races have decimal points? Franklin demands, when there's a stable subspecies. The 4.1s can use the axiom in their skin to look like anyone else. The 4.2s are invisible by default and require concentration to turn visible. They're called cloaken, shapeshifters, and spies. Got it. How'd you know Frank? Miles demands Franklin, who grins. I'm pretty sure I rate adept at this point. She stood out like a flare, he says before holding out his hand palm towards the downed cloaken. Lightning pours from it to wrap around the invisible form, both bringing it to visibility and raising it in the air. I take it invisible clothing isn't widely produced, he says, bushing a few outlined feathers to the side in curiosity as he examines the form. It's expensive, Agenda says as Franklin levitates the naked form writhed in lightning upwards. She's not twitching and there's no smoke. So it's probably just a light chow he's using to scare off further attempts. Either that or he's discovering new fetishes. Not her business. That nerd is not her man, and she does not care who he sticks it in so long as the crew doesn't break out into violence about it. If the entertainment is finished. Jin asks in a tone cold enough that if she had any training as an adept, she'd have frosted the deck plating beneath them. Yay, yay. Just need to take some notes, Franklin mutters as he puts his pad in the hand holding up the cloaken and starts scribbling into it. Take her with you and do it at the bar, Brent orders, and Franklin tucks the pen behind his ear and slips the notepad away before nodding. If you boys are done. Agenda asks and nearly scowls at the salute thrown at her. We're moving, she orders and begins moving again. The aim assist of Jin's weapons causing the ever-growing crowd to part until a heavily armed and armored security officer stomps up to them in a full-on dark gray power suit. The words "Ashen Duct" in white under a black marking of a tiny doodle of the station are emblazoned on her shoulder pads. This station isn't a flesh market. Not for men. We don't need that kind of heat, Lil Pa. They're under orders to straight up kill anyone that tries to take them. They're part of my crew and part of a deal I'm about to make. This ISN single quotes T. It's not a flesh trade. I've found the deal of a lifetime and it's one you can only take once. But others can get it too. I intend to milk some favors out of other captains I'm meeting in Jen's bar and bargain. The fuck is it called that for anyways? One of the men, Lucy guesses, asks just loud enough to be heard. It's a bar where every booth has privacy screens, meaning it's perfect for making deals. The security guard replies, clearly trying to look good for the men that can't even see her through the suit of power armor. We're moving again. Enough distractions. The fuck are you bringing her for? Jake asks Franklin even as they start moving. Fucking invisibility, dude. He says before grinning and will have stealth on a level that the predator will shit his pants. He continues in a human language that is only understood by the men around him who cackle and grin at the suggestion. The brassy bong of a head running straight into Marcus' large domed shield causes everyone to turn and see a tiny woman with bright green skin and long black hair lying down dazed on the floor. What just happened? Agenda demands even as Jin groans into three of her hands. The retarded BMO 1/100th number 7 made a dash for the men and collided with Marcus' shield. No, he didn't deflect her. He didn't even see her before she knocked herself further into mental weakness. Is this normal? What the hell? Marcus demands as Brent grabs the tiny green-skinned woman by the belt of her pants and tosses her to one of the watching crowd. He then tosses over a credit disc to the woman who caught her. Drag her to a doctor or at least someplace safe. He orders the woman, who nods. Yes, this is normal. Gobes are always like that. They don't consider things, they just rush in at a full sprint and expect it to work out. Them and Cobes and Slobes are problems the galaxy over, more vermin than actual people. Jin explains as she glares at the green pest being dragged away. Unlike actual vermin, they couldn't just be fumigated, trapped, or thrown out an airlock. They were people, and that made it all the more aggravating. Okay, that's it. I'm done. Girls fall in and make a path. Agenda barks and pulses of plasma and red laser beams launch into the air, with the tinge of ozone causing a good chunk of the crowd to part as the security moves in. "We're moving," she commands, which brings the attention of the men back down. They'd been looking up towards where the laser and plasma fire had gone, so the plasma unravels that fast. Brent asks in surprise. The sheer short range of the weapons was baffling. Yes, the plasma guns were said to be short-ranged, but the blasts had dissipated maybe 3 to 4 stories up. 5 at most. Their lasers can't compete with thermal bloom either, Jake notes as he rolls his shoulders. He'd looked up in time to see a few flares along the laser beams, which killed all its power to the point that it acted more like a bright laser pointer at the ceiling some 10 stories up. That just means we've got the range, my friends. But the first idiot to get cocky will likely get his shot off, Victor adds himself, and Agenda just shakes her head. She needs to learn their language, whatever it's called. They keep pace and the crowds get further and further choked out as more of her girls weave out of the background and form a protective ring around her and the men. Jen's bar and bargain is of course open and not too crowded, the purely aesthetic. Doors swing in as the real privacy is the booths, with the one straight opposite of the door filled almost to capacity and with the screens down to reveal a few familiar faces. A nearby trinity of tables are open for the men and protection. Perfect. Hey, Lil Pa. Good timing. We're only a couple. Is that a literal horde of men behind you? Captain Meg Screen greets her before trailing off in shock. The green-skinned and antenna-bearing BIH 1/100th number 3 always had a clear sphere helmet on and a plasma pistol at her side. She looked almost harmless with her slight frame and exposed arms and legs. But the tattoos of slightly paler green down her arms and thighs were infused with axiom, giving her a permanent force field, and coupled with the slight rebreather hooked into the helmet meant she was ready and trained to jump out an airlock and cut her way into an enemy ship. Her favored method of attacking, which she ensured her entire crew could replicate. It was an amazing way of stealing cargo, as most ships automatically sealed off any areas open to vacuum by the time people suited up to try and stop her and her crew. They already had either stolen most of the stuff and were going or had rigged up a trap to take them out. Of course, the woman's a Lutrin. It could be Captain Screen. Or it honestly could be any other Lutrin alive impersonating her. The entire species is effectively identical to one another beyond personal dress and tattoos. But Screen's markings were standard issue on her ship, and at this distance there's no way to spot the few telltale scars. The appropriate thing to do was ignore it and treat whatever Lutrin you're talking to as the one you want to talk to. It's not like they're so ignorant that they don't know that they're physically interchangeable. Beside her cruelty, a distant cousin to Mercy on her ship is openly gawking at them. She knows for a fact that Captain Cruelty was called by Mercy, who had also taken the time to boast. WMH 1/100th number 2, either faking it or broken, and straight up dangerous. Mercy is a dangerous type, but she's not sure about Cruelty. The nickname suggests a faker, but Mercy seems so normal until she straight up charges moving air cars to tear people out of it, and that's her being affectionate. So which one went and fucked Mercy? Cruelty demands with a salacious smile that makes the rest of the table chuckle to themselves. This one, Victor says before anyone can say anything else as he grabs the smaller man by the back of the shirt and holds him up. He catches an elbow in the side of the face for it, followed by a kick to the side. Oh, go on. She's practically family. Do you now, you little horn? We're all in Glass House's vodka. I'd tell you to cool it if you weren't frostbitten. Brent interrupts and Victor snorts as they all pile in. We got the middle table there. He asks Agenda, who nods. Captain Agenda the biter Lilpaw, where the fuck did you get 10 Tret men? Captain Carey score demands. The woman's. Basically a flying case of collateral, with her ship being a moving artillery piece that blows the fuck out of stations, and in the confusion of them trying to repair and prevent loss of life, they grab some nearby cargo haulers. A brutal but effective tactic. The woman's a threat herself, and is no doubt stunned to see so many males of what look to be her own kind in one place. A threat? Bick asks in a confused tone as he sits down after shoving Lou out of the way. They're not threat, but they're BMOs, of that there is no doubt. Agenda almost purrs as she saunters up to the table with the other for captains and takes a seat. It's one of the smaller booths, but a good one. She presses a button and hard light images and sound baffling. Rev up. It's an annoying tinny whine at the edge of her and Cruelty's hearing, but worth it. No, seriously, where the hell did you find 10 not threat men? Let alone ones that are completely comfortable in a pirate's station and armed to the teeth. Willow Spoke demands, not technically a captain, but something this big on her station demands her attention, and Agenda made sure to invite her. Guile. Archnamike 1/100th number 4, absolute masters of their domain with an obsession for running things perfectly. Her being the master of a station is stereotypical to the point of absurdity. That's what I'm here to talk to you girls about. You see, there are more of them, but I've already gotten all I can out of it, at least in the way of men. I'm still making money and getting political favors. You've been bought, Screen says with a raised eyebrow. Last money. Bag not work out. Stupid bitch put me on a collision course with my current boss. First job was to grab the slag and throw her to them. After stealing all her stuff for myself, of course, Willow notes daintily, get to the point. You've implied we can get a deal like this ourselves, and from what Mercy has told me. Where and how? Cruelty demands. Let up on the thirst, Screechy. She's getting there. Screen says as Agenda narrows her eyes, the slight scar on the nose. This isn't Screen, it's one of her lieutenants. Damn Lutrin, they even smelled alike. So Screen sent one of her girls to meet instead. I hope she's listening in and not just hoping for the best. Lil Pa states, and there's a moment's pause before the body double relaxes and puts a small device on the table. Well, to be honest, Agenda, the message was really sketchy sounding, even in our circles. The deal of a lifetime, something we'll regret for the rest of our lives if we refuse. Good goddess's girl, were you trying to scare us off? I've actually lost money by betting it was a trap. The actual Screen says from the tiny camera. And calm. Hey, you said that ... we've got half the crew standing by Yvette. You're fine? Screen assures her lackey and Lil Pa size. Don't take offense, Agenda, dear girl. Think of it as a sign of respect. We think you're credible. Threat. True enough. Willow says, reaching under the table and removing a shaped blasting charge as Cruelty adjusts her seating to set a pair of laser pistols on the table herself. Carrie pulls out a vicious hooked knife covered in enchanted runes and lays it down in front of her with a smile. So, where do we get some tight tread ass? Carrie asks and Agenda chuckles. First off, they're not Tret. They're human, the new race that was found stuck deep in cruel space. Wait, weren't you part of that initial raid that was fought off? Something about massive amounts of kinetic and explosive rounds. Carrie asks with a frown, on top of a stupid amount of ablative plating. Their ship, the Dauntless, is a flying fortress. Not well armed, but carrying enough troops to slaughter a world. That's what those 10 are, troops off the Dauntless. You got a state sponsorship from the people in cruel space. Willow puts it together first. No way. Yvette exclaims in shock. Yes, I have, and they want more. More pirates in their freebooter fleet. More for their Earth Foreign Legion. Okay, so they're offering business, but... oh shit. They're selling men as payment. No, not selling. The men are the soldiers posted on my ship to assure obedience. Unless we go against the humans, then they're just part of the crew, but they're also there to try and stop us if we go rogue on them. They're just men, Lil Pa. I get if you think we can get a grab bag, but Carrie begins before trailing off at Agenda's unimpressed look. What? Their race uses the men as warriors. Everyone there is a highly trained killing machine. They're carrying enough on them right now that they could probably take the station if they wanted to. No offense, Willow. They're not that good-looking, Lil Paw. I think I can take them, Willow says calmly with a slight titter into the back of her hand. The spiderish women of the Archna are all fairly haughty and overassured of themselves. The hell you can, Franklin calls from outside the booth, and Willow flinches in shock. Your hearing is that hypersensitive. Agenda barks out loud, glaring at the opaque barrier between her and the men. No, I just like randomly shouting things, and they coincidentally sound like I'm responding to what other people are saying. Franklin barks back. There's a loud, slapping sound followed by some quick and punchy words in a human language. Fuck you. Franklin, be a dear and tell whoever tried to slap the stupid out you that they have my thanks. Agenda says, screw you. That's Miles' job, not yours. She responds primly before turning back to the others. Humans have a 100 per 100 gender ratio. I think it has something to do with evolving in cruel space. Those 10 men are highly trained soldiers, but that's not the important part. The important part is that I have the contact information for their ship, the Dauntless, and express orders to tell as many friends as I think are trustworthy that they can get a deal like mine, which is why we're here. Do you girls want guaranteed customers and nearly a literal ton of strong and eager men? Eager? Cruelty asks, and Agenda pulls out a basic bioscanner that she turns on herself and has it run a quick scan. It's over in a few moments, and she hands the small device over. The eyebrows and massive ears of the fruit Sneer go up in shock. Congratulations, they're in season now. And you brought them on the station, she demands as the scanner is grabbed. First by Willow, then is quickly stolen by Carrie, then Yvette. Human quirk. They don't have seasons, it's either time or they're too young or old. But regardless, they're virile, fertile, and eager. They're also desperate to make friends at all levels of society, meaning us. So, do you ladies want some powerfully trained, incredibly eager, and extremely hardcore men romping around your ships or station, respectively? She asks, and there's a pause where she chuckles. May as well ask someone in a whole breach if they want atmosphere. Yes, give me the info and I will race out to get me some man. Willow all but purrs and she lets out a giggle before there's a scream from outside. They drop the privacy screen and have their weapons pointed out at anything that could be threatening them. The men have their weapons pointed every which way, with the exception of Marcus, who's torn out a woman's cybernetic limb and has paused in the act of bringing it down on her head. The large BM-01 100th number 65 is as massively well-muscled as the rest of her race, but it apparently wasn't enough to stop her hugely reinforced and overpowered cyber arm from being ripped out and used as a club. Are we interrupting? Carrie asks, with an enormous smile on her face as Marcus makes eye contact and glances down at the gray-skinned and tusked woman below him. She's a third again as tall as he is and is likely twice if not 3 times his body weight, but that just means that he's grabbing on by an ear as he stands on a chair to give him the space to really bring down the metal. Somewhat. Can we have like 30 seconds? It'll be funnier that way, Bick asks, and Carrie turns the privacy screen back on. There's a series of brutal impacts, the sound of something shattering, and a scream of fury from the Horchko woman followed by a prolonged tearing noise. Carrie turns the screen off, and her smile stretches from ear to ear at the madness exposed. That was not 30 seconds. Jake protests as everyone pauses mid-duct taping of the belligerent woman. He and Victor are taping her up. Marcus, Lou, Cy, Rue, and Brent are holding her still while Bick is drawing profanity on her forehead and Franklin is pulling apart the remains of her cybernetic arm as Jean-Luc is holding a massive tray of drinks. and snacks away from the chaos with an enormous smile. Fuck, I ain't even done one of you, and I'm already in love. Carrie cackles in glee at the sight of them. Her words break what spell there was keeping them from continuing, and they go back into a flurry of movement. The Horchka is quickly wrapped up in the silver tape to the point that everything below the nose is completely covered, while Franklin rips out the microcomputer and battery system out of the cybernetic arm. The men then carry her out to the entrance, where Victor and Jake throw her clean through the door and onto the deck plating outside. All the men let out a laugh at the sight, and Jean-Luc lets the tray back down on the table. The drinks are quickly grabbed and thrown back with a gusto as they start to talk to one another in a human language that no one else understands. Those that make eye contact with the captains offer a little salute with their glasses, but otherwise act as if they own the bar. So what's the story with his pet cloaker there? Willow asks, gesturing to the several bands of duct tape floating in the air next to the table that shows something unseen being restrained. She tried to jump him and is now something he's studying to figure out her invisibility. Agenda supplies. Oh, they got nerds. Nasty. Kira exclaims theatrically. Fuck you too. Franklin responds offhandedly as he feverishly writes his notes and otherwise ignores the world around him. What has him so interested? Willow asks, honestly curious herself. They're from cruel space, stupid. Axiom is something new and strange to him. I'm surprised he's resisted the urge to skin the cloaker. Screen remarks, she's got a lot of sass when she's not present. To take the heat for it, he's probably considered and dismissed it already. Agenda admits, I have, he remarks as he flips a page on his notebook and takes a swig of the nearest drink and gags. The fuck, this is the hardest they've got. He demands, looking into the large glass with a look of disdain as the table chuckles at him. So, what do you girls say? You want in on the Earth Foreign Legion? Agenda asks to get to the point already. She can hear the crowds outside growing in volume and likely soon to try something stupid. I'm game. Carrie remarks, and there's a slight commotion as a Lutrin rushes in and Yvette stands up. Captain the body double begins before her captain freezes to stare at the men, paces around them slowly, and squeezes into where her seat right next to Yvette. A slight scar at the base of the left antenna lets Agenda know this is the actual captain screen. You did good, Yvette, and yes, Captain Lilpaw. I'm in. Captain Screen says, considering that there's no way I can get my cousin and her man meat transferred to my ship, I'll have to join in as well. Cruelty says as she opally leers at the men as Rue and Lou get into a competition as to who can empty a jug of the strongest alcohol in the bar the fastest. Is that gonna kill him? They're borderline immune to ingested poisons? Meaning watch yourself if they offer you anything. Also, they'll be bitching about how boring the food is and how weak the drinks are. Then they'll start breaking out chemical weapons to give the food some kick. Look that, she says as Brent dribbles some red substance onto a small bit of meat that he pops into his mouth. That was enough capsaicin to kill any one of us, and it's just a flavor for him. I've seen them light alcohol on fire and drink it. Well, it will be interesting to see what kind of exotic cuisine they'll be bringing to my station. Willow remarks to herself, okay, so it's a clean sweep, Captain. Can we get off the leash now? We want to look around the station. Brent asks, and the entire table turns to them. Agenda looks towards Willow, who looks back. This is a pirate station. They're on a pirate crew. Agenda remarks, we're also liable to cause a straight-up riot. We'll go back to the ship if that's too much for your delicate constitution, ladies, but we are looking for entertainment. Brent continues, and there's a pause before Willow guffaws into the back of her hand. Go ahead, but my crews won't. Give you special ... goddess damn they're fast. Willow begins to answer, and the men are GONE with a small bundle of credit discs on the table. Outside, there are a few calls of there they are, followed by some curses and an explosion. I have to see this. She says, scuttling up backwards up the wall and into the hidden compartment on the ceiling. Damn trapdoor spider aliens. Captain Screen notes with a bit of aversion at the reminder that the entire station is a mass of tunnels and traps, too. Give its master maximum mobility. Before we start, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. Only 4% of my channel is subscribed. When it reaches 1,000 subscribers, I will release a special video. The first sign was a whisper in the void, an anomaly detected.